All right, so I've been digging into this handbook, Roots of Resilience. It's all about, building stronger communities.
Fascinating stuff.
It is. And today we're going to go deep on a specific topic, village or neighborhood councils. Have you heard about these?
Oh, absolutely. They're a key part of that multi-level framework the book talks about, right?
Exactly. It's like that next step up. We talked about those microcircles before, like your book clubs and gardening groups.
Right. Those smaller, more focused groups.
Yeah. So these councils are kind of the glue that holds them together,
yeah.
right? They act as this connector between all those smaller groups.
The handbook really emphasizes that connector role. It's about bringing those microcircles together to work on things that affect the whole village or neighborhood.
Okay, I'm with you so far. But what does that actually look like in practice? What do these councils actually do?
Well, they're all about coordinating those microcircles and managing communal resources. It's like almost a mini government for the village or neighborhood.
Mini government. That sounds pretty official.
It can be, but it's really about community self-governance, taking responsibility for their own well-being.
I like that. So they're not just like organizing bake sales.
Not exactly, though I'm sure those happen too. But it's more about things like managing shared resources, making decisions about local development, resolving conflicts within the community, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so it's about the nitty-gritty stuff that keeps a community functioning. Like what specifically? Give me some examples.
Sure. Think shared wells, energy systems, maybe even community gardens. It's about making sure everyone has access to what they need.
That makes sense. So someone's got to make those decisions about how those resources are used.
Exactly, and that's where those governance committees come in.
Governance committees.
Yeah, the handbook talks about how these councils are often divided into these committees, each focusing on a specific area.
Like what? What kind of areas?
Well, you've got your Infrastructure and Resources Committee. They'd be the ones dealing with those shared wells and energy systems, for example.
Okay, that makes sense. So who's making sure things stay lively? We can't be all work and no play.
Right. There's usually a committee for social and cultural activities. They'd be in charge of organizing community events, celebrations, festivals, that kind of thing.
Got it. So keeping that sense of community alive, which from what I've read in Roots of Resilience, is essential for building resilience.
Absolutely. And then there's the Finance and Economy Committee. This is where things get interesting.
Ooh, finance. I'm all ears. What do they handle?
Well, they manage the community's finances, of course, but they also explore some pretty innovative economic models like local currencies.
Wait, hold on. Local currencies. Now you've piqued my curiosity. How does that work?
Well, imagine a currency that's only used within your village or neighborhood.
So like you're creating your own little monetary system. Wouldn't that clash with the regular money we use?
Not necessarily. It's designed to complement the existing system, really. The idea is to keep money circulating locally, supporting local businesses.
Okay, so it's like building this mini economy within the community itself. Interesting. But is that even possible?
It is. The handbook actually mentions this great example, the Bristol Pound. It was launched in Bristol, UK, and it's been incredibly successful in boosting the local economy.
Really? Wow. So tell me more about this Bristol Pound. How does it actually work in practice?
People use it for all sorts of things. Groceries, haircuts, even paying their local taxes.
Paying taxes in local currency? That's commitment.
It is, and it's been great for local businesses, helping them to compete with those big chain stores.
I see. So it's like creating this localized economic ecosystem.
Exactly. And speaking of ecosystems, another way these councils can boost local resilience is through cooperatives.
Cooperatives, I've always been intrigued by the concept. But how do they fit into this whole village council structure?
Well, a council might help to initiate and support a cooperative, connecting them with resources and even linking them up with other communities.
So it's like providing that support structure for these community-owned businesses to thrive.
Precisely. And these cooperatives can tackle all sorts of things: farming, retail, even banking. It's about the community taking control of its own needs.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just small potatoes, right? These co-ops can get pretty big.
They can. There's this amazing example in the handbook, the Mondragon Corporation in Spain.
Mondragon Corporation. Okay, I'm not familiar with that one. Fill me in.
Get this. It's this huge network of worker-owned cooperatives. It spans all sorts of industries. Supermarkets, manufacturing, even banks. It's like a whole corporation run as a cooperative.
Oh, wow. A whole corporation. That's pretty incredible. So it's not just about small town ideals then. It can be a model for real economic power.
Exactly. And that's why the handbook includes these real-world examples. Seeing these ideas in action is so important.
It's one thing to talk about theory, but seeing how it actually works on the ground, that's what makes it click.
I totally agree. It makes it so much more real and tangible.
All right, so we've got these village councils coordinating those smaller microcircles, managing resources, and potentially experimenting with economic models like local currencies and cooperatives.
It's a pretty powerful combination.
It really is. It seems like a real roadmap to a more resilient and self-sufficient community.
It definitely has that potential.
But we've only just scratched the surface, right? There's so much more to uncover about these village councils.
Absolutely. We've laid the groundwork, but now we need to delve deeper into those real-world examples.
Yeah, let's see how these councils actually navigate the inevitable challenges they encounter.
You know those case studies in the handbook? They really highlight how these village councils tackle real-world problems.
Oh, yeah, those are always so fascinating. It's one thing to talk about these ideas in theory, but seeing how they actually play out, that's what really brings it home.
Totally. There was one about this village in Nepal facing water scarcity, like really severe water shortages.
Oh, wow, that's a big one. Water's essential.
Right. And it was causing all sorts of tension and conflict in the community. Their traditional system of shared water sources just wasn't working anymore.
I can imagine. So how did the village council step in?
Well, they got organized, right. They formed this dedicated water management committee.
Smart move. So like a specialized task force to address this specific problem.
Exactly. And they didn't just have the council make all the decisions. They brought in people from each microcircle, farmers, households, even the local school.
That's smart. Get everyone who relies on that water involved in finding a solution.
Exactly. And they came up with some really innovative solutions. They combined their traditional knowledge with modern techniques.
Oh, I like that. Blending the old and the new. What did they do specifically?
For example, they revived this ancient rainwater harvesting system, but they also installed new, more efficient irrigation channels.
Wow. So they were really taking a holistic approach. Did it work?
It did. It significantly increased their water supply, and it dramatically reduced those conflicts over water use.
That's incredible. So a win-win on both fronts. And it shows how these councils can bring people together to solve those really tough problems.
It does. The handbook even mentions how they were so proud of their success that they started teaching other villages what they'd learned.
I love that. It's like that ripple effect, spreading those positive changes outwards.
Right. And there's another great example, this time from a rural community in the U.S. They were struggling economically.
So a different challenge, but still a major one. How did their council respond?
Well, they saw that a lot of residents had these amazing artistic talents. Woodworking, weaving, pottery, you name it. They realized they could turn those talents into thriving businesses.
Okay, I'm seeing the potential here.
So the council helped them to form a cooperative. They pooled their resources, learned about marketing together, and even secured a small loan.
A cooperative of artists. I love that. So did this creative approach to economic revitalization actually work?
It did. Their handcrafted goods became really popular at local markets and even online. They started creating jobs and breathing new life into the local economy.
That's incredible. It's a testament to the power of community-driven solutions. And the ripple effect happened here too, right?
Yep. Other villages saw their success and started replicating their model. Pretty soon they had this whole regional network of artisan cooperatives.
Wow. It's amazing how these local initiatives can spark wider movements.
Right. And it's not all about practical stuff like water or economics. These councils can really strengthen the social fabric of a community, that sense of belonging. It's huge for resilience.
It is. So how do these councils foster that sense of community?
Lots of ways. They might organize community events like festivals, potlucks, even movie nights. They create spaces for people to share skills and knowledge.
Okay, so it's about creating those opportunities for people to connect and support each other. Do they have any specific examples of that in the handbook?
There's this fascinating one from a coastal town in Ireland. Their traditional fishing practices were declining, and it was impacting their whole identity.
Oh, I can see how that would be a blow to their sense of community, their shared history. So how did the council address this?
They decided to celebrate their fishing heritage by organizing a Heritage Week. They brought in older fishermen to share stories and teach the younger generation. They even had a seafood cooking competition.
That sounds like a really fun way to reconnect with their roots and remind everyone of what makes their community special.
It was a huge hit, and it helped to revive interest in their fishing traditions. Young people started apprenticing with the older fishermen, and the council even helped them restore some of the old fishing boats.
That's a beautiful story. It's about more than just preserving a tradition. It's about preserving that sense of shared identity and pride. It's about honoring their heritage.
Exactly. The handbook really emphasizes that these successful village councils go beyond just the rules and structures. It's about fostering that spirit of collaboration, inclusivity, and genuine care for the well-being of the entire community.
Yeah, it's like the difference between just going through the motions and really putting your heart into it.
Exactly. But let's be real, building this kind of resilient community, it's not always easy.
Of course not. There are always going to be challenges. The handbook acknowledges that.
Oh, absolutely. They don't sugarcoat it. They talk about some of those bumps in the road.
Good, because that's what makes it feel real and relatable. So what are some of the common challenges?
Well, one big one is leadership burnout. You have this small group of passionate people driving these initiatives, and it's easy for them to get overwhelmed.
Totally. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Right. And the handbook emphasizes the importance of spreading those responsibilities and creating support systems. Things like rotating leadership roles, mentorship programs, making sure everyone feels heard and valued.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's about sustainability, making sure everyone is supported and no one burns out. What other challenges do they mention?
Funding is another big one. A lot of these councils start with very limited resources.
Yeah, that's a common hurdle for any grassroots initiative. What do they suggest?
They encourage councils to get creative with fundraising, look for grants, maybe even establish a community fund where people can contribute what they can.
It's like crowdfunding for community resilience.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the challenge of navigating differences of opinion.
That's inevitable when you're bringing diverse groups of people together, especially when tackling those complex issues.
Right. Not everyone is going to agree all the time. The handbook emphasizes the importance of having clear conflict resolution processes in place.
Okay, so like a framework for addressing disagreements in a healthy and productive way.
Exactly. They suggest looking at traditional methods of conflict resolution that already exist within the community, maybe setting up a mediation committee or having some agreed upon guidelines for communication and decision making.
So blending those traditional methods with modern approaches. I like that.
They even suggest exploring online platforms for communication and feedback. It's about finding that balance.
Between the old and the new, yeah. And it seems like this handbook is really thorough, offering practical guidance for those who want to build resilience.
It is. They've really thought of everything. And one thing that really stands out is their emphasis on the long-term vision. It's not just about quick fixes.
It's about laying the foundation for a truly sustainable future.
Exactly. And a big part of that is making sure those lessons learned and experiences are passed on to the next generation. They call it institutional memory.
Okay, so like creating a living archive of community knowledge so they don't have to start from scratch each time.
Exactly. They suggest things like clear documentation, mentorship programs, even storytelling. Oh, storytelling. I love that. Stories have such a powerful way of transmitting knowledge and values.
Totally. It's about weaving that tapestry of community history and resilience.
This conversation has given me so much to think about.
Me too. One thing that struck me is just how diverse these approaches to building resilience can be.
Right. There's no one-size-fits-all model. Each community has its own unique needs and strengths.
Exactly. And the handbook encourages that diversity. It's about adapting those approaches to fit your context, finding what resonates with your community's values.
So it's not about trying to force-fit a pre-existing model. It's about customizing those tools and strategies.
Precisely. And they offer a whole toolkit of ideas to draw from.
Okay, so like a buffet of resilience building options. Give me some examples.
Well, when it comes to decision-making, some councils might have elected officials, while others might prefer a more consensus-based approach. It's about finding what works for them.
Okay, so different governance models for different communities. And then for economic innovations, it's not just about local currencies and co-ops. Some might explore things like community land trusts to protect affordable housing or agricultural land. Others might focus on micro-lending programs. There are so many possibilities.
It's like choose your own adventure for building a resilient economy.
Yeah. And when it comes to fostering social connection, it can be anything from skill-sharing workshops to intergenerational mentoring programs, even community art projects.
So many ways to get people connected and engaged.
And of course, they also talk about using technology to connect people and build stronger communities.
Right. So much potential there. It's like merging ancient wisdom with modern innovation.
I love that. It's about recognizing that resilience is not about clinging to the past or blindly embracing the future. It's about finding that balance.
This conversation has really opened my eyes to the potential of village councils. It's about communities taking ownership and creating a future they can be proud of.
I agree. And one of the biggest takeaways for me is that building resilience doesn't require waiting for someone else to lead the way.
Right. It starts with each one of us.
Exactly. Those small local actions, they really can make a difference.
Like what? What kind of small actions can people take?
It could be as simple as starting a conversation with your neighbors, sharing your skills or planting a few trees.
Simple acts of connection and care. I like that.
Right. And those small actions can ripple outwards and inspire others.
And eventually those ripples become waves of change.
Exactly. And as we create those ripples of resilience, we have to remember it's an ongoing process. There will be challenges, but with collaboration and creativity, we can overcome them.
So it's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. It's about embracing the interconnectedness of our communities and our world.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. It's given me a whole new perspective on what it means to build resilience, both as individuals and as communities.
Me too. It's been great exploring these ideas with you.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, remember that the future is in our hands. So we've talked a lot about these village or neighborhood councils, how they work, the challenges they face, the amazing things they can achieve.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. But where do we go from here? How do these councils fit into the bigger picture of building resilience?
Well, remember, these councils are just one piece of the puzzle, that second level, connecting those microcircles.
What, like building blocks? So what's the next level up?
The handbook talks about district or bioregional councils. It's that third tier of this resilience building framework. Things start to operate on a much larger scale.
District or bioregional councils? Sounds pretty official. What exactly do they do?
Think of them as amplifying the impact of those village councils, bringing together representatives from multiple councils within a larger area, a district, maybe even a whole bioregion.
Okay, so like a network of networks.
Exactly. Those councils are joining forces to tackle those larger scale challenges, things that go beyond a single village or neighborhood.
I see. It's like that saying, united we stand, divided we fall.
Exactly. The handbook outlines some key functions of these district councils. One of the most important is resource pooling.
Resource pooling. So instead of each village trying to go it alone, they're sharing what they have.
Exactly. Sharing equipment, coordinating bulk purchases, maybe even setting up systems for exchanging surplus food or energy.
A community-level sharing economy. Makes sense.
Right. It's recognizing that we can achieve more when we work together.
Any real-world examples of this in action?
There's a great one in the handbook about a region in India where villages created a shared seed bank.
A shared seed bank. Interesting. How does that work?
Each village contributes seeds from their traditional crops. It creates this amazing collection, boosting food security and preserving those local varieties.
Wow, that's brilliant. So it's like a safety net for their food supply.
Yeah.
And they're protecting their agricultural heritage.
Right. And these district councils also play a vital role in advocacy.
Advocacy. So they're not just focused inward on collaboration between councils.
Right. With representatives from multiple communities, they have a much stronger voice when it comes to influencing government policies or securing funding for regional projects.
Makes sense. There's power in numbers.
Exactly. And they can also help with capacity building.
Capacity building. What does that mean in this context?
Organizing training workshops, sharing best practices, that kind of thing. Supporting those local councils so they can be more effective.
Oh, I see. So it's like creating a learning network for those councils.
Exactly. It's a multi-layered support system for building resilience.
It's really starting to click for me now how all these levels work together. So inspiring.
It is. And what's great is that these district councils can take many different forms. Some might be more formal, with elected officials, while others operate more like informal networks.
So again, adapting to what works best for each region.
Right. Finding what resonates with the values and culture of the communities involved.
Okay, so say someone listening to this is thinking, I want to create this in my community. Where do they even begin?
You know, the handbook emphasizes that building resilience starts with small, local actions.
Not waiting for someone else to take charge. Love that.
It could be as simple as talking to your neighbors, organizing a skill-sharing workshop, planting some trees.
Those small acts, multiplied across a community, they can really add up.
They can. They create that ripple effect. inspiring others to get involved.
Those ripples can become waves of change.
And those waves can transform communities and the world.
What a beautiful image. So we create those waves one ripple at a time.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
It's about embracing that journey of learning and adapting together.
It's recognizing that we're all interconnected. Our actions, no matter how small, can make a difference.
This conversation has been so inspiring. It's giving me a whole new understanding of resilience.
Me too. It's been wonderful exploring these ideas with you.
To our listeners, building resilience starts with each one of us. Let's create those ripples of change that will transform our communities and our world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay connected and keep building that resilient future one ripple at a time.